you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, buddy.
And by Neil.
Hello.
And by Ed.
Hi.
Little Eddie Wilson, back with us again.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Yep. Not nice to lose the first game of the season. I actually prefer to win first games of the season. Didn't we have a massive...
It's a marathon. It's not a marathon, not a sprint. And
I read somewhere that there's 45 games to go.
Yeah. And if we play like that, we'll win more often than we lose.
Okay, it's brilliant that we lost. Let's have moments of the week. Paul, you can start us off with your cheeriness today.
Well, I didn't celebrate Tony's goal because as he stood over the free kick, I told everyone around me that he was about to put this in the roof of the net. So when he did, it was a sort of, well...
Oh, you had to be smug.
Yeah.
I knew that anyway.
You got the assist.
I knew he was going to do that. I mean, their goalkeeper was... I know he put off an amazing save at the end. Their goalkeeper was horrendous.
He was shit, wasn't he?
Oh, he was truly terrible. So when he stood over the ball, and me and Joey have this discussion a lot, don't trust the wall. Just don't trust the wall. And as soon as he sort of moved to one side, it was like, you're giving Andrew way too much of that goal to aim at. And he's way too good not to put it right in the corner.
I think you were right to downplay your reaction as well, because it definitely undermines the status of a prophet if they wildly celebrate every time something they claim is going to happen comes through.
I was right, I told you.
That's why every time I win the lottery, I just don't tell anyone about it.
Yeah, Nostradamus giving it the big one right in. Ed, your moment of the week, please.
I am going to go with Max Biamu's outrageous overhead kick. Oh. Well, the chest control that preceded it, bringing it down from a drilled pass from Mason, and then must have been, 20, maybe even slightly more than 20 yards out, an overhead kick. But what I particularly like, actually, it's connected to Paul's comment about the Scunthorpe keeper, was it felt like one of those situations where an outfield player has a spectacular effort and the goalie feels they would sort of be letting down the spectacle if they save it comfortably. So he ended up sort of palming it away at full stretch, whereas at the time I thought he could probably have caught it. But it was like a sort of little improvisation game with the two of them yes-anding the shit out of each other.
Very good. Neil, moment of the week.
The return of Tony was pleasing. My moment of the week came after he scored his goal, though, when everybody was singing, and then I thought, hang on, is this a Tony chant? And then it was clap, 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 clap. And I was the only one to say Tony at the end of it. Everybody else said City. And I thought this is the perfect opportunity just to throw his name into the mix. And it turns out I'm the only one obsessed with him.
Oh, I don't think...
moment of the week was just being the only one...
I don't think...
You don't think I'm the only obsessed with him?
No, I think he's... I've seen an awful lot. So we've asked for questions this week that we probably won't get to again, but we will try. I've seen an awful lot of questions that say, would we have gone up automatically if we had had Andrew in last season? And
Can I answer that question now?
Yeah.
We would have won the Champions League last season if we'd had him in the
team. I agree. But when it comes to obsession... Are any of those doing a podcast in their Tony pajamas? I do not think so.
No, I really don't think they are. All I can say is just the free kick is just awesome, isn't it? I wasn't at the game, unfortunately, but having looked at it back, I don't think listening to it on CWR did it a modicum of justice. He was such a way out, and it was such a perfectly hit shot. But yeah.
But then they don't actually describe any of the goals on CWR. All you hear is the build-up to the goal and then a cacophony of noise.
First half was Uncle Jeff. Was great Uncle Jeff doing the commentary, and that's a role that he's not suited to. You can see why they've got him doing the questions at the end rather than doing the commentary on a regular basis. It was like someone had to nudge him every so often and be like, Jeff, can you do us a favour and describe what's going on?
Jeff, dead air is a crime. We'll say it again.
I do love how they don't understand sort of the mechanics of the microphone, and it's there to amplify your voice. You do not need to scream into it.
But Benno's
the other one, isn't he? He screams into it whenever we score, which is quite endearing. But
I think is it Martin Winch who's the other guy? What didn't help him is that I think he did the second half, and he's quite competent. And so, by comparison, it really, really, really didn't make Jeff look good. Did we talk too much about Jeff Foster on here?
I don't think you can really.
Okay, let's get to the reason that we're here then. Paul, all seemed to be going pretty well from what I could tell following it from the comfort of my sofa, and was quite surprised in the end that we lost. What happened?
Scunthorpe scored twice.
Brilliant. You know full well.
That's
I'm trying to lead you into.
I know, but I love it when you. Anyway,
contrary.
Anyway, so we played what 4-2-3-1
Correct.
with a plethora of new players. O'Brien was in goal because Burge is injured, because apparently he gets injured every summer diving on hard pitches. I just don't know why, that just really tickled me when I heard that. It's like, really?
Where did you hear that?
That's what Mark Robbins said.
That is what Mark Robbins said.
Yeah, every summer he gets a hip injury because he dives around on hard ground.
I thought that was funny as well, because it's like he still hasn't learned his lesson.
So I just imagine Golgi going down with a couple of cushions going, is this about right? Just land on the cushion. Just land on the cushion.
That'd be a good tactic as well, because the cushions might also help stop the ball from going in. They should see about doing that a lot, of just stuffing stuff on the floor.
Bringing cushion onto the pitch. A beanbag.
Yeah,
a couple of paddling pools.
Yeah, it's for my hip. I've got a bad hip. You'd be like, okay. Because we allow people reasonable adjustments at our work if they need a thing or whatever. He's got a bad hip. We can't expect him to be lowering himself on a hard floor, can you?
Oh, on a serious note, since when I was a kid, when you bought goalie shorts, it came with sort of padding on the side.
Not these fashionable goalie shorts now that have got no protection, like the football boots as well.
Yeah, that's terrible. Anyway, so O'Brien started in goal, and Sterling started at right back, which apparently he was one of the reasons we weren't winning in pre-season, because he wasn't starting. So he started. Mason started at left back, so it's quite an inexperienced fullback combination. And then Willis came in, who we're not sure how injured he was, alongside Dominic Hyam, because we have no other centre backs because we sold Rod and we haven't bought a replacement, and Davies is still suspended. And in midfield, he brought in a Go-Go to play the Liam Kelly role alongside Doyle, who was playing the Doyle role. And then in front of that, they had a Drewy in the sort of middle of the trident. They had Bayliss on the right, and they had.
Can we have that again? Who in the middle of the trident?
Andrew.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you said Andrewy there.
No, and I'm not even going to attempt the lad who signed from Huddersfield on the left wing. Oh, I'm just going to call Jordy.
Yeah, Jordy's
his
fine.
first name.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, he should have that on the back of his shirt. And then sort of, Jordy Cruyff type way. Anyway, and up front,
just quickly while we're on him, does anyone know if his name is actually Jordan and we've got yet another Jordan in the squad?
Sure.
Don't know.
Okay, we'll find out. Well, we'll ask our stats team in the background to check it out while you carry on, Paul.
And up front, we started with Biamu, who got the nod above JCH. And so it was like, how dynamic can our front four be? What are our new fullbacks like? And how rubbish are Scunthorpe? And we started well. I think we definitely were the better team for periods. Andrew and Bayliss, as you can imagine, play really nice attacking football together, and they're just really good players to watch. So that was really nice and interesting. Biamu was involved. Jordy was sort of involved, but you weren't really sure if he knew where he was meant to be stood. He was sort of sometimes a bit deep, sometimes a bit too central. You knew that he hadn't trained that often with the side. He didn't look like he was quite comfortable in the role he was being asked to play, and that's not his fault. It was just sometimes you got the feeling he could have been a bit more, because Biamu doesn't have pace to run behind. You sort of needed him to make those breaks, and he wasn't quite in the right position. But I said, you don't blame him for that. It's just a case of that's how it panned out. And then when he did get played through, if we're going to be kind, he didn't hit the target. If we're going to be cruel, he really should have hit the target. It was a really, and I think in 10 games' time, he misses that chance. He doesn't get the leeway he's been given at the moment, because he should have hit the target. It's a really good opportunity. And at that point, we were definitely on top. Andrew was getting in quite a lot of decent positions where he was just like, just shoot a bit earlier, or you don't have to play the killer through ball. You could take this on yourself, especially against their goalkeeper, because when he did have a chance, when he did have a shot from outside the area, it basically went past the keeper, hit the post, hit the keeper on the back of the head, and you weren't sure if it was going to go in. And you were like, if anything, you've got to test this keeper. This keeper doesn't look secure. He does look like the sort of keeper you can get at. And in the second half, Agogo hit the post with a similar shot from similar distance, which you just thought, it really shouldn't be getting past the keeper. This keeper's, you can get at this keeper. You can get at Scunthorpe. And then after about 30 minutes, we sort of petered out a little bit, and Scunthorpe sort of got back into the game. And you could see that they were targeting. For me, in the first half, I thought when Scunthorpe were on top, they went down Mason's side, and they got at Mason a little bit. And they had a chance which was cleared off the line by Sterling, a combination of Sterling and O'Brien. They had another chance that hit the post and hit O'Brien in the face, and then went out for a corner. That was just, I didn't understand how he had saved it in the first instance. So see it on replay, and it's like, shit, that was close. So Scunthorpe had their chances, but I think they were probably more thankful than we were to go in half-time 0-0. I think we were the better side for the majority of the first half. Second half, again, they started all right. We started slightly better. We scored from Andrew's free kick. And then it went through. They were making quite a few substitutions, and they were trying to get things happening. They brought on this little lad who played behind the striker. And just they started to ask us questions. In the first half, I thought they were quite solid. They were quite happy for a 0-0. Once they went behind, I think they started to try and make things themselves more offensive. And I thought in the first half, Agogo was really good. He was really solid. He was really composed on the ball. If anything, his passing was a little bit behind players. But again, it's like that's not criticism. It's just the way the game seemed to be panning out. When he was passing the ball to the side, it was just sort of slowing momentum down a little bit. But it was always to the right player. He wasn't making the wrong pass. It was just not. And you could see that with quite a few players. They weren't in full season flow yet. You get the feeling that Agogo is going to be a very good player for us. It was just a couple of times you were just like, oof, if that had been worked better, if we'd have made that pass earlier, if we'd have done that. And he was just one of those players who just, for me, just didn't quite click as well as you get the feeling he's going to. Not saying he looked bad. You can see there's a lot there to be excited about. And him and Doyle, again in the first half, looked very solid. But as I said, I don't think Scunthorpe were really testing us at that point. And they made their substitutions, and then they scored the equaliser, which wasn't really against the run of play, but they probably, we were the better team. And I know this has got a lot of comments on Twitter, and a lot of people have been. I think if you watch it, if you're going to play 4-2-3-1, then you're going to have to expect your fullbacks to get forward quite a lot. And if you watch the goal, Bayliss comes in from the right wing, he nutmegs the player, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, Sterling's come advanced on the right wing, which is sort of where he's meant to be if Bayliss goes inside, because he's providing you with the width. They break, and for me, Agogo, being on the right-hand side of the defensive two, has to either drop back in because he knows that Sterling's gone ahead, or he's got to sort of stand in a better position. And for me, Agogo sort of goes missing. Their lad breaks through. It's a central midfielder who scores. It isn't, it's a great run from their lad. Sterling's trying to get back, but as I said, it's sort of whoever's playing right back in that position is going to be where they are. So he's got to trap back. He doesn't quite make it. Agogo lets him go. Willis gets pulled over. Maybe he could have done better. Maybe he could have passed it on to Hyam. It's difficult. And then once it gets to 1-1, you're like, we've been the better team. But this isn't, this is maybe going against us a little bit now. What we need is strengthening somewhere. Now, for me, after about 60 minutes, Jordy was just gone. We were counter-attacking a couple of times, and he just wasn't in the places we needed him to be. So the subs went up, and you're like, okay, they're going to take off Jordy. That makes sense. Oh, we're making a triple substitution. Okay, that's a bit worrying. Oh, he's taken off Biamu, who's just ran 20 yards to the right wing and doesn't look tired. He's just took off Bayliss and brought Shipley on the right wing. And just fast forward 2 minutes, the first thing that happens to Shipley is the ball gets played in front of him on the right wing, and he shanks the ball out of play because he's got to take it with his right foot. And you're like, that's not, he's never shown anything on the right wing. That's a bit harsh on Shipley to be given that sort of remit out of position. And he obviously had to take off Willis. And you're like, well, if you know Willis isn't going to last 90 minutes, sort of maybe you start with Grimmer, because then you know when you've got to take Willis off. You've still got Grimmer, Kidd, Hyam, Kidd. At least you've still got a little bit of balance there. But we ended up, the game with 3 defenders who I think were all making their league debut. And then the ball went to the wing. One of the issues we're going to have in this division is Mason's quite short. They won the header against Mason. The ball came over. Thompson probably gave away a penalty. Their lad gets in front of Sterling, nails it in the bottom corner. All 3 of them have got to be culpable in different ways. And we're 2-1 down. The front 4, which had looked really good in the first half, 2 of them were off the pitch. We looked completely disjointed. JCH had one of his games where he fell over and didn't really do a lot. And you just, I know we had another chance, but it's just, you got the feeling that the triple substitution killed the momentum we had. And it provided it to Scunthorpe, who, in my opinion, got their substitutions more spot on. And I know that's also the combination of players who were injured. If Jordy Jones had been available, he would have been perfect to bring on, or the other lad we signed from non-league who was previously at Palace. If we'd have had someone like that to bring on with pace and trickery, then maybe we wouldn't have sort of, having the triple substitution would have hurt us as much. But the triple substitution, in my opinion, really didn't help the way the team was playing, and it didn't help the front 4. And we lost a game that we didn't deserve to lose. We probably should have won. And there's lots of things to be positive about, but at the end of the day, we've still got, there's still issues out there. We still desperately need a goal scorer. We still need a focal point for that front 4. As much as I like Biamu, what we need is someone who's going to stretch defenders more. I think he's better in the 2. Maybe as the season goes on, he'll show that he is capable in a 1. But I don't trust his movement in that.
First of all, thank you for a very, very comprehensive and structured rundown of the game. It was really, really good. Second of all, we had people asking about that, and I want you to elaborate on that a bit more and maybe bring other people in. We were talking about it a little bit last week about how we will look up front and how people will lock together. Because I agree with you. I think that Biamu probably does want a more traditional striker next to him to utilise the best of his skills. But the only way of that happening is really to drop Andrew out, isn't it? Is that fair? Neil, what would you do?
This is the problem, because Tony, I said it last week, is that player behind the striker. He's not going to go straight up front. So it is a proper formation dilemma, because I think we need both. We need 2 strikers, and we need Tony in the team. And I've seen him a couple of times drop further back, so he's kind of in the midfield. But I'm not sure whether that gets the best out of him either. So we've got a problem here, because I think it's quite clear that Andrew's our best player. But to get the best out of him, you probably have to do something with the formation which doesn't make sense for the rest of the team. So I'm in the wait and see mode at the moment. I want to see kind of how things kind of evolve with the players around them, because I kind of like the formation, the idea of the 4-2-3-1 with the right players, with that right striker. Biamu by himself doesn't strike me as the person who should be playing that role, but I don't know who should.
You just mentioned there that you thought that, I don't know whether it was something that you just said off the cuff, but that Andrew clearly the best player in the squad.
I think technically, maybe I should just say attacking wise, I think he's got a class and a vision which other players in the team haven't got. But yeah, I think I'll stick by that.
I would go along with that. My impression, definitely on Saturday, was that he is somebody who is capable with one pass of taking 1 or 2 opposition players out of the game, and he really is pretty handy as that kind of link man between the midfield and a striker. He looks like he's probably our best attacking player.
I mean, for him, it'll be runners, and which is my issue with Biamu, because a couple of times you could see he wanted to play a ball, and this isn't. The problem is, whenever you talk about players in a sort of slightly negative light, people think of criticism, and it's not really a negative light, and it's not really a criticism, it's a fact. Biamu doesn't want that ball to run through, in the same way that Armstrong didn't want to come back and be part of the game. He wanted to be on the last man's shoulder and run through. Biamu, that isn't his game. You could see there was a couple of times where you just pass now, and the one time that he did release Biamu, you were like, shoot. But by the time that Biamu had actually caught up with the ball, it was too late. It was too acute an angle. He isn't quick enough. He's not looking for that run. So then you've got to bring other players in. Now the problem with Bayliss is still technically a central midfielder. We're playing him on the right wing, but he's not going to make that run either. He will score 5 to 10 goals this season if we play him in that position. But you get the feeling that a different, maybe a Jordy Jones when he comes back, maybe is it Idrissi, the other lad?
Alassane.
Maybe when he's in with Jordy, as I said, you got the feeling that Jordy has something. It's just a case of you got the feeling he hadn't been there that long. He hadn't worked on that system. Now maybe next week against Wimbledon, when he's been training for a week, and Andrew's played with him for a week, they'll get that understanding better, and he'll understand sort of when to go. And I mean, for me, one of the other options is you basically play it's like a 4-3-1-2 with Andrew behind 2 strikers, and you play Bayliss on the right, and you play Shipley on the left, and you play Agogo or Doyle in the middle.
So where does that leave Jones?
Then hopefully you play Jones up front alongside Biamu.
Okay.
And where does that leave Connor Chaplin and Amadou Bakayoko and the other cadre of subpar footballers that people are desperate to see?
And Johnson Clark Harris.
Of course, yeah.
Obviously for me, the other thing about Andrew, and I think what I was really impressed with on Saturday was how good he looked, but also almost you can't say anything about Andrew until probably the end of August.
He's going to get better, isn't he?
Yeah, because he's been out for a year, and you could see at times he wasn't quite making that. As I said, at times he delayed a couple of things, and you were like, okay, once you've been playing for like 3 or 4 games, you won't delay that pass. You'll play it earlier. He should have had 5 or 6 shots, but he was trying to work other players in. You were like, no, you can take that from 25 yards. You've got that ability, and it's just a case of him getting that confidence. So I think he is really, how he wasn't everyone's man of the match, I don't know, because he was the one guy you looked to that pitch and you were like, he stands out. And
it was really exciting watching him, wasn't it? And I thought it was really exciting watching him and thinking, this is probably not him at the top of his form. There's more to come here.
I mean, the only caveat I would have is it was an absolute glorious opening game of the season, atmosphere day. Scunthorpe were a little bit, like, my mate said to me the first time, I was like, this feels a little bit like a pre-season friendly. And I sort of knew there clearly wasn't, both teams weren't completely at full intensity because they're not going to be for a couple of weeks. So it's going to be more interesting to see, Andrew, how he copes in the, not just like, can he do it on a wet, windy night in fucking Fleetwood, but once sort of the season starts taking, its toll, once things start, Scunthorpe are quite an attractive side and not particularly one of the more physical sides. I know they went for a couple of physical tackles, but it wasn't a niggly game. It's like the trial's going to come slightly later on in the season when things get a bit more hectic. But, all you can go off is the first game, and on the first day, he stood out.
The question is then, and this is a question for Ed, what the hell is he doing here?
What? The Tone Zone?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Well, I'm probably wildly speculating here, but I would imagine that this is some sort of penal servitude for a crime that he's committed, and we're just not aware of that. But it's like some sort of community service or something.
Do you think it's possible that being French, he's scared of signing for a better club?
What, because of all those French players that have signed for better clubs and then been rubbish?
I'm just thinking of a general cowardice that's rampant among that nation.
Oh, I see. Like a sort of like a cheese-eating surrender monkey type.
Absolutely, yeah. Bicycle-eating surrender onions, as I believe the Viz once called French people.
Okay.
I also want to ask a more serious question to you, Ed, about the actual man of the match, who was Abu Agogo.
Yep.
Pray tell. How did he do? Because it sounds to me like there was a one true king who hasn't been recognised in Tone. But what happened with Agogo?
I agree with Paul that I thought generally he played well, and I think he's going to prove to be a really good signing for us. I think like the Tone Zone, he's probably still slightly off the pace. He mentioned in his post-match interview that was his first competitive game since March. So he probably still is a little bit rusty. He was definitely partly culpable for the first goal. Actually, I just want to talk about that quickly, because I agree with you, Paul, that there was a runner breaking through there from midfield that he didn't track. The only thing that I would say is that the runner basically came from behind him, right? The break was made from behind him. And I think that although Sterling is quite high up the pitch, Sterling can see that guy making that run in a way that Agogo can't. So the run comes from behind Agogo, and Sterling actually manages to get back to the guy and then does nothing to intervene. So although I partly agree that Agogo was culpable for that goal, I felt that having basically made a recovery run, Sterling just did nothing. And actually I thought there might have been a strong case for him just to bring the bloke down. And I don't know if that's maybe if that's maybe just a lack of experience of men's football or something like that. But that looked a little bit naive to me. But yeah, I think Agogo is going to be a really important player for us, and definitely as Doyle, who is, what is he, sort of mid-50s? He's mid-50s, right, Doyle now. So as he ages, I think that Agogo is going to be a great replacement for him. He looks like a really impressive player and like a presence in the middle of the pitch.
There seems to be this assertion that Doyle this year will degrade, like more than at any point in his career. So this will be the year that he goes. I mean, you never know. He might stick it out.
I don't think it's quite that. I think the problem is that 2 years ago, a team that went up into League One sold him because they didn't think he was going to cut it in League One. Be that like degradation, or be that he couldn't cope with the step up and all the games and everything. And that 2 years on, it's probably not a great bet that he's in a better position. I don't think he's going to be for the scrapyard quite yet, but I do think it's astute that you'd bring someone in so that there'd be like a reasonable level of handover without a spit, because we'd be done for if we just went without him, wouldn't we? Because we haven't got... He's weirdly... You'd think kickers would be 10 a penny, but they're not, are they? So you need to get someone in who would do something. Sorry, I cut someone off there. Who was going to...
That does a disservice to Agogo, by the way, who is more than a kicker.
I mean, that disappoints me thoroughly. But go on, tell me what more that he does. Or what does he do? Pass?
He can pass. Yeah, he can pass.
Boring.
I think he's quite good. He's quite positional. I mean,
position is commanding. Yeah.
As I said, apart from, we're not going to go over the equaliser. I'll just throw this one. I think my issue with it is, once you're played on that position, once your fullback goes forward, you've got to position yourself more to cover the fullback being out of position, which is sort of your job on that side. And I don't think Agogo was in the best position to start off with, which is why if it had been in a better position, he wouldn't have been chasing as much to start off with. I think his position, he's got to recognise that his fullback has gone forward, therefore his responsibility, in case there is the counter, is basically to tuck back to the right-hand side to provide that shield behind Sterling. And I don't think he did. But it's not. I think it's just it was after about 70 minutes. He hasn't played since March. He's going to be physically and mentally knackered at that point. So I think it is just a case of. I think there are a combination of people who were at fault for that goal. Because if you watch Doyle just goes running headless chicken towards the ball instead of sort of holding his position either. The whole when you see where they get the ball back and how they create that goal, they walk through our central midfield, and our central midfield shouldn't be being walked through that easily. And then maybe Sterling should have done better at the very end, but I think there's a lot of things going on before it gets to the last man. There are errors before it gets to that error.
Yeah, agreed.
My issue with Doyle is I thought at times you got the feeling that Scunthorpe were playing a bit more around him than was happening last season. Again, first game of the season, but you get the feeling that I can see where Doyle didn't get sent off last season. I think I know that this gap between, we'd like to think the gap between League One and League Two isn't as big, I think the gap between the top 10, top 12 of League One compared to probably 80, like teams that finish, most of the teams that finished beneath us, and we finished 6th last season, is quite big. I think the top 12 teams in League One are good sides. And my issue with Doyle is I think what he got away with against a lot of shit in League Two, being that yard slower, he will get sent off. He will get booked. He will give away possession a bit more because he's clearly a yard slower than some of the other players around him.
I assumed him not getting sent off last season was down to the fact that there's a painting of him in his attic getting sent off every week instead of him. But it's possible that slowness is what will catch him up. Have we got anything more about the game? It feels like it's been rounded off quite nicely there. Who else? We talked about.
I'd like to make just the point around, because the big takeaway I took from the game, because it's a takeaway, was the fact that we just tired. We tired. Like by about 70 minutes, you could see player after player was starting to slow down. You had Bayliss just kind of lost it. And Tony started to struggle. Sterling as well. I mean, he's clearly got some pace in the legs, but they were going as well. And I just felt like throughout the team, that comparison, us versus them, they lasted better than we did. And that it's funny, that always disappoints me, because you just sort of wonder, well, surely you can do everything about that. And yet for some reason, whether maybe we put too much into the opening opening hour or something, I don't know, but kind of watching it when we played so well for quite a long period of the match, and then we just fell away. And I don't think it was solely down to tactics or anything. I think a lot of it was down to just sheer sort of energy, the ability to actually sustain that kind of that quality throughout the rest of the match, because Bayliss does this a lot, and he doesn't last 90 very often at all, actually. By about the hour mark, he starts to really flag, and he'll only really sort of participate when it's kind of necessary. And it's just, we kind of had drops of that across the whole team, I felt. So I didn't want that side of things to just get left. I kind of felt that had quite a telling factor as well.
And that's, I mean, we discussed this at half time. I think the subs were going to be critical in how they were used, and I think Scunthorpe got their subs correct. They brought them on gradually. Each time they did it, they took off a player. You were like, okay, that obviously you don't know them that well, but it was like, okay, that sort of makes sense what you're doing now. And when they brought on that tricky little kid, you were like, okay, and he was at the fulcrum of both goals. And I don't think either Doyle or Agogo dealt with him at all well enough. I think he was basically, other than Andrew, he was the guy you were like, yeah, you're a good player. And I think that, which is my issue with our subs, is I'm a big fan of Shipley, but in that game, you were like, well, what we needed now is a bit more pace. We needed something a bit more. We needed more invention, and bringing him on the right wing was just you're putting him on the wrong side to start off with, and he's not really what we need. And this is my big. I know. Should we get on to talk about? Is it Bayoko, the signing from Warsaw?
Bakayoko. Yeah. Has that actually fully happened?
I think. No. I mean, it's whether or not we sign him or not. Obviously, it's very strongly rumoured at the moment, and you get the feeling it's like, well, we signed Johnson Clark-Harris at the start of this window. He didn't set the world on fire last season. It's a big season for him. You've got Max, who's obviously first choice. If you're going to bring in another striker, and they're not going to be a Chaplin type striker, they're not going to be a McNulty replacement, then you're bringing in a Biamu replacement. That's fine. If you can bring in, as much as we all love Biamu's not irreplaceable. No one in our team, you can't sort of go, oh, we can't buy someone better because we're in the third tier of English football. Obviously, we can buy a better player for each one of our players. That's how, the football system works. But if we're going to bring in someone better than Biamu, then it makes the signing of Johnson Clark-Harris a bit sort of, well, he's now third choice for that one position. We're hopefully going to bring in a different type of striker as well. So it's just... And he didn't... I don't know what the other two thought. We came on, he did that one thing where he just stood there and then he fell over and tried to grab the free kick. And it's like, you're just acting like, when... I said this to my mate. When Cristiano Ronaldo pulled up his shorts against Spain, you were like, you're going to nail us in the roof of the net. Because players like... And you just get the thing with Johnson Clark-Harris. It's like, this is my moment. I'm Johnson Clark... Oh. And you're like, well... Prove it first. Be the first choice. There's no way. I mean, there's a clear path for you into the first team. You can be better than Biamu. You've played at a high level. That is your goal now. Is you've got to come on with 20 minutes to go. Within 2 minutes, we've gone 1-0. You go 2-1 behind. You've still got 18 minutes to make a major mark on this team and make yourself undroppable for next week. And we're talking about replacing him already.
Has anyone seen Bakayoko's goal record?
Yep.
I mean, we complain about goal records on here quite a lot, don't we, for potential strikers? But his is, I mean, on the low
special
side of it's. We actually go on.
Oh, you'd like to think they're signing him because they've seen him, not just because of numbers. They've actually watched him and they think he can offer something rather than. You'd hope it's not just a punt. This guy's available. They've barely seen him. They're just looking and thinking, "Oh, right, we need to take this guy." So, I mean, that's what signing, isn't it? You scout someone, you judge their abilities, and you bring them in based on that.
It is, but I think that it's the problem for me is something that Paul touched on earlier. I think we've got you guys saying that Tony Andrew is, the most skillful attacking outlet that we've got. And I think there is a way in which he can play with a player like Biamu ahead of him. And it's what Paul said, which is that you'd have Alassani on one side, maybe, albeit that we've not seen him, but I gather that that's the sort of player he is. And then when he's fit, you have Jones on the other, and that you use a sort of attacking big lad, be it Bakayoko or Biamu, whoever else, as a sort of outlet, creating space, elbowing people, doing whatever, and then you hope that Andrew is setting through two inside forwards and jobs are good. But that's not what he's doing. Effectively what he's doing is he's just sort of lobbing attacking players on the pitch, isn't he? And I think that if there was some plan to it, maybe it'd be great. But I don't see how... I'm not sure that we need another Biamu, do we? Aren't we quite happy with Biamu as a Biamu? The question is really about getting a striker who we think would give us an option of a shitload of goals, and that empirically it's not likely for him to... It's not empirically poor record, and with that on the face of it, it's not massively likely that all of a sudden he's going to come through and bang 20 next season, is it?
How old is he?
22, I think, or 23. So maybe he's just
22.
a baby.
He looks more mobile. He looks more mobile than Biamu. He's not the same. I really don't think he's the same type of player.
The other thing I should say is that I've come very late to this rumour, so I don't know whether it's just total bollocks and whether we're talking about it, but it does seem to have gathered pace today.
Can I also just ask if anyone knows why Alassani wasn't even on the bench on Saturday?
No
I
idea.
have no idea.
No idea for a player that I would have put money on starting on Saturday.
Maybe he would have started and Jordy would have been on the bench.
Because
that would make sense.
Because to Paul's point, I thought that, although I didn't think Robin's substitutions were great, I thought that the bench did look quite one-dimensional, and that Alassani would have given us just a different option, something that, you're saying that's the type of player that you should have brought on, and you just didn't have that sort of player on the bench. And I agree. I think it's weird that he wasn't on the bench unless again, hard ground.
No.
Like a horse.
Yeah. He's been destroyed.
My point isn't really. We needed to make substitutions. I think my issue is I would never make. You're changing basically a third of your outfield in one go, which is it is too much for your team to sort of. Obviously, it can work, but you just get the feeling it more often than not it doesn't. It disrupted too much of the way we were playing, especially for me. All I can go off from what I was seeing, it felt like he had decided before kickoff he was going to bring Johnson Clark-Harris on for Biamu, regardless of what was happening in the game. So he made that substitution. And you were like, well, once Biamu went off, we didn't win anything in the air. We lost all aerial battles. It was just... Biamu, and I said, all I can go off is what I saw from stood in the crowd, and obviously Robbins knows far more than I do, but you were stood there going... You didn't need to take Biamu off. You could have, if you wanted to bring Johnson Clark-Harris on, that's fine. You could have even taken off Bayliss at that point. Or you could have taken off Jordy, who was clearly suffering more than anyone else and had been doing for like 20, 30 minutes. And I know he had a shot at the end, but he wasn't contributing to the team at that point. And you were like, that substitution just felt like I'm going to make this substitution regardless of this game needs it or not.
It's a little bit like them two job share, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they sort of I don't think it needs any more explanation than that.
Can I also just make one final point about the pre-season atmosphere that Paul was talking about earlier? So I agree that the atmosphere did feel slightly flat's probably the wrong word, but it did have a slight pre-season feel to it. And I think part of that was to do with the weather and first day of the season, all that sort of stuff. But I also felt slightly ambivalent about the whole experience because on the one hand, I was excited to see the new signings and all that kind of thing. But on the other hand, it felt slightly deflating to look at the team sheet and see, for me anyway, to see so many of the players who were successful last season and who I think we all agreed developed quite a significant sort of affinity with the fans and that kind of thing, not there. So I don't know quite what I expected. Like I don't think I expected any different, but I just felt it was a slightly I just felt slightly alienated from the players on the pitch because there were a lot of unfamiliar players out there, and I thought that maybe contributed to an atmosphere that was a bit odd. And I also thought that maybe some of that stuff that had been some chat that I saw about a problem with Block 15 or something like that might have contributed to a slightly flat atmosphere as well, because that was very empty.
It wasn't as boisterous as it normally is in Block 15. I sort of understand where you're coming from as well. I know we haven't really touched on the whole Grimmer Sterling thing. For me, I think if you sign a kid from Chelsea who is meant to be that good, once you make that signing, you are probably going to start him, rightly or wrongly. I think once you make that decision to bring in that player, it didn't surprise me when he started, but the fact he's been seen by some to be culpable for at least one, if not both goals, and I think that sort of not having, I say, Grimmer in the side for Sterling, who didn't play particularly well, not having Shipley in the side for Jordy, which, Shipley is one of those players that people have an affinity for, as you say. I think obviously the big elephant in the room is not having McNulty, even though he was in the stands, because we've sold him. And I think if we'd have made I think one of the things that we desperately need is a striker. I think we need a striker basically to put the line under McNulty, and hopefully that striker comes in and scores in the first game or first couple of games, because that McNulty thing, I think, is going to hang around this club like a bad smell for a couple of weeks until either he gets into the Reading team and scores 20 and everyone goes, well, he needed to make the step up, or we get someone in and we just forget about him. As that's what happens when you sell players who score goals. You always pine for them. We pine for Dion. We're still technically pining for Dion, and and we did the same when Robbie Keane left. One of Craig Bellamy's biggest issues was the fact he wasn't Robbie Keane. And I remember being at Swindon and Bellamy trying this fucking ridiculous shot that went wide, and the guy next to him was like, Robbie Keane would have scored that. And you're like, well, he probably wouldn't have done. Like, fucking hell, I think there's about 10 players in the world who would have scored that 9 times out of 10. Keane would have probably done it once out of 10. Bellamy once out of 10. And I think that's the other thing. I think there is that cloud at the club at the moment where we desperately need that new number 10.
Difficult question to ask is, I know that they're not the ones that we want, but do we need another striker at the club? Haven't we got a load of attacking players? Aren't we going to have certain players that are just completely marginalised if we assign another striker?
I think that's the point.
But the thing is, it's like, out of the players we've got, there's two arguments, isn't there? You either have 5 players get you 10, 15 goals,
which is what I think we should probably aim for. But carry on, sorry.
Or you have someone who you're more guaranteed to score your goals. And I think, as you're saying about the lad from Warsaw, whose name's just escaped me, he's played 43 times for Warsaw last season and didn't really score. And I know people are like, oh yeah, but we've got more creative players. It's like, players don't score because they don't score. It's like maybe he just doesn't score that often. But that's fine. Like Oliver Giroud won the World Cup not scoring, as long as you've got the players around him to score. The issue is, if we're playing Bayliss on the right of the front three, will he score enough? How many will Andrew get? I mean, if you look at Jordy, if you look at his record, he gets 9-10 a season in League One. So he's not, he's going to get us maybe 10.
To be fair, he got 9-10 a season starting 20 games.
Yeah, and then the problem is if you're going to go with Doyle and Agogo, or Kelly and Agogo, or Kelly and Doyle, you're not getting many goals from your midfield either. It's personally, I think we do need a striker. I think if we need someone else, because I don't rate the strikers we've got.
If you look at the positives, though, I mean, we can say, okay, it's Bayliss on the right, but you can also say it's Bayliss on the right, Jody Jones on the left, Andrew behind him. That three is this year's Kent, Murphy, Maddison kind of. That is a lineup of three high quality players.
But this is sort of what I mean. Is I kind of think, why are we?
I kind of like it.
Yeah, I think that I almost think we've got plenty. I just don't like this obsession with just keep signing players. But I think that if we've already signed Hiwula and Johnson Clark Harris, and I know that we already had Johnson Clark Harris, but I'm not sure why he would be he couldn't have possibly have set out this summer to have a plan that was to have as many attacking players we've got already in the squad and still at this point be looking to sign another striker. It just doesn't ring true for me, which is why the Bakayoko signing baffles me more than anything else. Because the one thing I could understand is signing a player that you had got like a massive pedigree of scoring a load of goals at this level and then it being beyond doubt. But to just sign another attacking player that doesn't really add anything that we haven't already got I don't get it. Especially when like you say, Neil, actually, between Alassani is a tremendously unknown quantity, but we have it on good authority that the reason that he dropped down the leagues is because of his knee injury, and actually he's a really, really good, high-quality player. Then you've got Bayliss, who is absolutely a world beater. Jordan Shipley, who I'd love to see more of. Tony Andrew, who you've described as the best attacking, skillful player at the club. Biamu, who everybody loves. Johnson Clark Harris, who was an option. Hiwula, who we've just signed. It's like an embarrassment of attacking players for us.
And Sterling, who can play further up as well.
And Junior Brown, who can play left wing. It just seems mad to me that people were still just like... But weirdly, I do sort of get it, because what we haven't done is replaced a player. But there's so many players come in that I almost wonder whether we're not seeing the wood for the trees. And Paul, you said it yourself. You could replace it by having all of those players. If all of those players got 10, then nobody gives a shit about it. Luton's top scorer last season only got about 17, didn't they? Because they just got a plethora of players that just banged them in because they had a functioning team.
I understand that, but also if you go back to the Murphy, Ryan, Kent, Maddison, Armstrong still scored 20 goals. And you get the feeling that if you're a defender, it's easy to defend against someone like Biamu because he's not a goal scorer in terms of that overhead kick was sensational. That was the only shot he had in like the 75 minutes or 70 minutes he was on when we were dominating the game. For periods of it, he wasn't. And for me, I still think we need a focal point. I just think I understand where you're coming from. We've got a plethora of attacking players. But to some extent, there's massive question marks over all of them at this level anyway. I know whoever we sign.
And yet it's only been a game.
Yeah, and it's only been a game. And I think if...
With some good stuff in it.
Robbins would sign another striker. I think the question is... as I said earlier, the question goes to my head is, we need another striker. But there again, when you talk about some of the players we've got, I wouldn't have signed Johnson Clark Harris. I never saw that as a necessary signing because once McNulty, and I always thought, and you know this, I always thought that McNulty was likely to go. I wasn't 100%. I didn't think teams would risk it, but as soon as someone came in, he had to go because he had to try at a high level. He might never get this opportunity again. So once you've got someone who scored 28 goals, you've got to almost, and let's be honest, he left very early in the transfer window.
Yeah.
So, he's had... And we have no idea about this Connor Chaplin. We have no idea if that's an ongoing rumour or actually been something we've considered. We just don't know. But that's been going on for months. And you look at him, he's definitely not your big bustling Biamu type. He's definitely more of a McNulty type. And also, if you looked at it from Robin's point of view, you'd almost say, well, I got that type of striker in. They scored me 28 goals. What I want is that sort of striker again. If I get goals from everywhere else, that's a bonus. But if you look at Robbins' career, he's always gone for that type of small striker, and that's because that's what he was. That's what he wants in his side.
I mean, I feel like you've made a bit of a leap at the end there, but I did agree with everything else. Right, let's listen to Dom's preview of the Wimbledon game. He actually talks in more detail about Bakayoko as well, having, as none of us do, actual knowledge about players that don't play for Cov. And then we'll be back after that to answer some listener questions and wrap things up. Hi, Dom. Thanks for joining us.
No, good to be on the pod as always.
Wimbledon on Saturday. How did they do in their opening game?
Well, they took on Fleetwood Town. Sorry, I didn't say that right. Joe Barton's Fleetwood Town. And they won 1-0. And it was a really impressive performance for them at Fleetwood, where they just kind of dominated the game, really. A lot of chances for them. They only scored the one in the end, but it could have been a couple more. They're just a really sort of physical, relentless team. They know what they're about. There's a lot of power in the side, and there's a little bit of pace as well. They want to get the ball into the box, and they showed that they can be effective at that last week in beating Fleetwood.
How did you describe them in your season preview that you did recently?
Yeah, so I had them down as one of the relegation candidates. I think there is good reason to believe that they might be struggling at the wrong end of the division coming into the season. They were the lowest scorers in the division last year out of the teams that stayed up, and they lost their top scorer, Lyle Taylor. So it didn't seem like a good combination. I think their first 11 is reasonably okay, and then as soon as one or two key players drop out of the side for them, there's a notable drop-off in quality, quite a thin squad, quite a few young players who haven't got much experience sort of packing out that squad.
Of those players, who are the ones to look out for?
So up front, they've got a pairing at the moment of Kwesi Appiah, who just a few years ago was playing in the Africa Cup of Nations for Ghana. Had quite an interesting career where he started off in non-league, got picked up by Crystal Palace, and never really broke into the first team there. Somehow got into the Ghana national side. He's had a few loan spells up and down, really. Couple in the Championship, couple in non-league. And his career has been held back a bit by injuries, but he's a powerful player. He's quite immobile, quite skillful. I remember last season he's got an absolutely brilliant individual goal against Blackburn. Just took on quite a lot of their players on the counter-attack, running half length of the pitch. So he's someone, when fit, when firing, who can be a really good player at League One level. Their scorer at the weekend was Joe Pigott, one of those players who I've only seen his name written down, but it may be pronounced differently to how it looks. It looks like it's Joe Pigott. Anyway, he's sort of been up and down Leagues 1 and 2 and then National League. Fairly inconsistent player, but he's sort of a big, quick striker who's scored sort of 1 in 3 since joining Wimbledon in January. They can bring on off from the bench James Hansen, who I think most Coventry fans will know all about from his time at Bradford. He's just a massive target man. He's not someone who's particularly precise where he looks to lay off his layoffs, but if you bring him on and use him right, he's a massive threat. I don't think he scored a goal last season, so he's getting on a bit. I don't think he's someone who will start, but if they bring him off the bench, he's someone they can use as a weapon quite well. Out wide, Andy Barcham and Mitch Pinnock. Andy Barcham's been with Wimbledon for quite a few years now. He's a quick player who can cause a few problems on the counter-attack, reasonably skillful. Mitch Pinnock signed from Dover over the summer and has really caught the eye in pre-season. Now opening day, he's a sort of tall, blonde winger who is immediately eye-catching in that sense, but he's also very skillful and very direct. Looks like he has a good delivery on him. He's potentially someone who could be a key creative presence for Wimbledon. And then in the centre, they have Tom Sort and Liam Trotter, who are both sort of 6 foot plus, just massive sort of refrigerator-sized players who are going to be hard to navigate around. You've got Tom Sawers, he's going to be pushing up a bit more and closing us down. So it's going to be a real physical inspection for us sort of up front, out wide, and in midfield.
2 questions on the central midfielders. Tom Sawers, I, for a long time, saw consistently referred to as Tom Suarez.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I don't know. Is it one of those things where if you're sort of a young player in the Championship, possibly pushing up for a good career, you're a Tom Suarez. As soon as you end up in League One, you're Tom Sawers.
And probably more serious, I remember seeing Liam Trotter play for Millwall in the Championship and being one of the few players that really, really stuck out for me. And I'm really quite surprised to see that he's dropped as low as this. And I gather that's been a sort of slow decline over a few years via Bolton and a few other clubs. What do you make of him? Whenever I've seen him, I've been really impressed with him as a sort of, at the time, as quite a dynamic box-to-box midfielder with, quite dangerous, quite sort of tasty. Is that fair, or...?
Yeah, I do remember when he was a big part of a Millwall side with Steve Morrison and managed by Kenny Jackett.
Danny Ngesson and James Henry, I think. Yeah.
Harry Kane on loan.
Of course, yeah. It was a really good fun side, that.
Yeah, they were pushing up to the Championship playoffs. For some reason, he seemed to have lost his way. The last time I remember seeing Liam Trotter play against us was for Bolton during the famous Stuart Bevan debut game where he gave David Wheater and Mark Beevers a real run for their money in the air. Physically, looked like it's going to be a really good signing. But I remember Trotter being brought on and the Bolton fans just booing him. They absolutely hated that guy. And he was allowed to leave rather unceremoniously for AFC Wimbledon. I don't think he's picked up many fans at AFC Wimbledon either. I think he's possibly lost a level of mobility to him. But as part of a sort of an all-round unit, he sort of provides additional level of physicality to the side, which Neil Ardley has built this AFC Wimbledon side around.
Okay, so sounds like it could go any number of different ways then, as football matches are wont to do. But do you want to hazard a guess at how it might go?
Yeah, I'm not overly optimistic for this game, just in the sense that I'm not sure we're sort of built at this moment in time to withstand a team that's going to be very physical like that. I mean, I haven't really seen enough this side to judge what we're good or bad against, but for some reason I'm feeling a bit pessimistic here. Tom Davies coming back should be a big boost in sort of defending balls into the box, but I can see us losing this 2-1.
Final question before you go. The only reason I'm aware of this is because of Twitter. I can't see any actual legit sources for it, but we've been linked with the player today, Bakayoko?
Yeah, Amadou Bakayoko from Walsall, who has been linked by former commentary Telegraph reporter and I'm sure friend of the Neil Lamptey show, Aidan McCartney.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, someone we know well. There seems to be quite legitimate legs in it. Looks like he was about to sign for Bristol Rovers and we've come in at the last minute there. Seems quite a curious choice of signing, I'd say. Not just looking at his goal record, which is frankly rubbish. It's like 9 in 97 over the past season. So
okay.
But he's a 6'4" guy, not necessarily someone who likes to put his physicality about. He's sort of someone who's sees himself certainly as more sort of a pacey, skillful kind of striker, sort of a bit like in the same manner as Frank Nublet. Again, he did score quite a lot of goals for Walsall's youth side and never really seemed to produce it at first team level. He's someone I've seen a few Walsall fans basically say, well, we've seen sort of flashes from him, but he's sort of getting to an age now where it's like, where's the consistency? And in terms of why are we spending money on someone who is quite some distance away from the finished product, someone who's third choice at a club who you would assume would be looking to finish above this season in the same division. Doesn't quite make sense. In terms of mould, seems like someone who'd be competing for a role in the side with Biamru and Johnson Clark-Harris, and it just seems a slightly odd signing. He's maybe someone who could come very good in a change of environment. He's someone who other clubs in this division have tried to sign, which should be seen as a bit of a positive, but I think my overall thing about it is a bit of a head scratcher, and it would be slightly odd if this was sort of the man we've identified as a McNulty replacement.
Yeah, well, breaking news here is that he's already had his club amended to Coventry City on his Wikipedia page, which, as we know, is the official line of announcement for a player's transfer. Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Thank you very much. Speak to you next week.
Okay, speak to you then.
Okay, thanks, Dom. Right, let's have a look through and see whether we've got listener questions. We have got some, but my fear is that we've actually answered quite a lot of them. So I did have them up, but unhelpfully I've navigated away, and now I'm going to go here. Very quickly, somebody has sent me, Dan Malia has sent us a thing on Twitter that's a photo of all of the Cov players who were down at the Family Zone on Saturday, and then Tom Davis in the back. Have you ever seen this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've retweeted it. Go over. Well, I mean, yeah, what a card. But I don't know whether in 2018 you're allowed to pull that face anymore, are you? Especially in the Family Zone. Head over to the Twitter. So it's Neil Ampty Show. It's twitter.com/Neil Ampty Show, or just search for us on there. I'm sure you'll find it. Or head over to Dan Malia's page and see it there. It's quite something.
This is another string to Tom Davis's bow, isn't it? Physical comedian.
He's I mean, it's just, he really could, you know, there's a lot of charities and stuff set up for footballers who fall out of the game and don't know what to do with their time. He's clearly going to go on and be a banter merchant.
So he's Twitter parodist.
Yeah.
Clown.
Yeah.
And footballer.
I don't know whether you can moonlight.
Definitely in that order.
I don't know whether you can moonlight as a Lad Bible content creator whilst being a professional footballer. But if you can, go for it. Okay. Brett W. If we play with one up front, do we have a striker suited to that role? Not sure Chaplin would be either. I feel like we've done that.
Oh, yeah, we've done that.
Plenty. Lee Bradbury. Does the somewhat large turnover of players over the summer threaten to disrupt any momentum or chemistry the team had from last season? Do we feel like we've done a little bit of that, haven't we? Does anyone have any, Neil?
That was actually probably my biggest concern coming into this season, because Robins has got a really tough job here. So everybody admits that last year, by the end of it, there was a really nice cohesion between the entire team, and there was momentum
known as
there.
A vibe, Neil.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, okay.
Please use the word vibe. Yeah.
Okay. I may not, but we'll carry on. So yeah, it's just there. That is where the real problem lies, because Robin's job now is to build a team that is suitable for League One, and with that comes some tricky decisions. And you know, people like Ryan Haynes, who I still maintain is a good quality footballer, I've left the club because Robbins feels like he's got better options and he can build a side slightly differently. And I'm definitely with Red when he says about kind of the different feel and a different vibe from the team at the weekend. It will take a little while just to kind of understand this unit, because there was just so many new faces. But it's always going to be a risk throwing in a whole lot of new players. But you hope that they are better. That's someone like Agogo should really be better than what we had before. It's just whether they actually become that sort of that unit that you need, that we had last year.
The other thing, go on, Paul.
There's two things, aren't there? I think Neil's sort of nailed it on the head at the end. It's you've got that issue. We have come up from League Two. We did finish sixth. You were always going to bring in 3 or 4 new players because you are making that step up. So the fact that he's changed, I mean, maybe he didn't need to change both left backs. Maybe he could have kept Stokes as reserve left back, or I think Haynes had to move on. But then you get the issue where you look at Grimmer, and Grimmer was first choice. He was fans' favourite.
Your favourite?
And he found out he had been dropped.
Dismissive giggle there.
Yeah, and if you've been serious about this for a second, if you look at him and you just think, if you were Jack Rimmer, you were first choice in the promotion-winning team, you were in PFA Team of the Year, you scored that goal at Wembley, first game out, you're being replaced by a kid who's got no league experience. And you've got to be... from what I understand, he was pretty miffed by that. Now, if you'd have known that all pre-season, then maybe it's a slightly different thing. But finding out the day of the game or day before the game you've been dropped, that's, and then suddenly you look at, there's rumours, I know these are rumours, there's the rumours that, we've signed Sterling, it's in his contract, he's got to play at least 80%. You're Jack Grimmer, you're sat there going, hang on a minute, am I actually going to, the transfer window only finishes on Thursday, and then it's like, it can only be going out on loan till the end of August. Is Jack Grimmer now knocking on Robin's door going, am I, what's my situation here? Mm-hmm. And if you're just, we've discussed this a lot about like just people's personality. If you're Jack Grimmer, suddenly you're going, hang on, I've got to make a decision in the next month whether or not I'm going to stay at Cov this season and be potentially second choice to Sterling, or I've got 6 days to work a move to a different club, or a month to work out a loan move. And I think that's where Robbins' management's got to come in, because he's got to convince same with Liam Kelly maybe, where he's looking at going, okay, I wasn't fully fit, but a go goes in. Where do I stand with this? Because he's going to play Doyle when he's fit. You've got a couple of those players now. Managing that expectation of the players is going to be a big thing for Robbins. As we discussed, the size of the squad he's got now. He's got a big squad. He's got at least 2 players for most positions. How he's going to keep everyone happy.
Kelly, of course, signed a 3 or 4 year contract recently as well.
But as we all know, contracts mean fuck all in football these days, don't they?
Well, no, but that you would think that one of the things when you sign that contract would be a question that says, how pivotal am I in this team? He's 29, I think. He's still got plenty of time ahead of him. And you would imagine to sign a contract of that length is you would be told you are, give or take, the first team player. But it's hard to see who he gets in ahead of. Speaking of central midfielders, Tom Furnival-Adams asks, will Robbins have the bollocks to drop Doyle if or when it becomes clear that he's finished? Ed?
I don't think that Robbins would need to do that. I think that Doyle would realise himself that it wasn't happening anymore. He would pick up the pearl-handled revolver. He would say, guys, I made you some time, and we would never see him again. He would do the decent thing. I
saw it originally as being a much more ceremonial sword through the stomach.
Or a Viking funeral.
Yeah.
Just bring him out on the pitch. Just on a longboat. Parade him around with him just like on his back, hands crossed.
Yeah.
With a football and someone's severed leg between his.
He's not going to go lightly, is it? Either way. The funny thing about Doyle is that you get the impression that his own funeral, there'd be someone else in the casket. Is that he would have been somebody else that died.
The name of your fugitive.
I think we've pretty much covered everything else that anybody has asked. Callum Hans asks, can you think of any sane logical reason why we're signing Amadou Bakayoko? But we've covered that again. This is the thing that we do, is that we're so good, we're so in tune with the thoughts and feelings of the fans that we actually answer a lot of their questions before they've even asked them.
And it's got nothing to do with the fact that they read more beforehand anyway.
No. And I'm actually so good that I can predict what some of those questions are going to be, and one of them is about the identity of Dwayne Holmes, who's been nominated for Team of the Week as a Coventry City player. And Dwayne Holmes is the guy that Paul has referred to once or twice as the little fella who came on.
Is that who it is?
And basically won the game for them.
There we go.
Dwayne Octavius Holmes.
How old is he?
He's 23, I think, off the top of my head.
Who are you, his agent?
He's 23. He's from Columbus in Georgia.
I've just realised that it's 2018 and the way that you can know things about someone is by Googling. Yeah, I did think about creating some sort of meme that was a picture of him underneath a picture of Thomas Hitzelsberger that would be Holmes under the hammer. But then I realised that it'd have no context for anybody. Nobody would recognise either of the photos, and it would just be a waste of everybody's time.
But you did it, and that's amazing.
Only if you had Dion to one side with a microphone in his mouth.
You have actually just added some. So I might do that. Yeah. I've not got a lot on. Yeah. Have we got anything else that we want to? Anything else that we want to go through before we finish up here? No, that sounds like a resounding no, doesn't it? Yeah, so do you know what has thrown me off this week is no midweek cup game.
You and Clive Eakin, not for the first time, are on the same wavelength then.
Well, clearly, yeah.
I'd definitely go away from this and retune my radio.
People call him and I Coventry's premier mic holders.
Yeah, two sides of the same coin, I think.
Very much, yeah.
Was it Clive who chucked you out of the studio? No, he didn't chuck you out, but you were on the radio, weren't you, once? You said something somewhat controversial.
I wasn't even controversial. It was, I said that I'd prefer Robbins over Di Canio as a manager because he wasn't a fascist.
That was it, wasn't it? Yeah. And then you didn't speak again. They went to a break and there was no more to be heard from Joey. I thought they'd bunged you out of the building.
No, they moved swiftly on from that. They seemed very.
It's not even a particularly contentious point.
No, as well, because it's this thing, isn't it? Is that fascism? There are there's the very literal fascism, which is what Di Canio subscribes to, which is the idea of a kind of unquestioned ruler. It doesn't. It's the same as communism. Communism looks great on paper, but is terribly open to corruption and everything. And fascism is exactly the same. As soon as you put one ruler in place, they could be a benevolent person who blah 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 blah, but typically they tend to be a racist, hateful figure. And Di Canio likes the idea of having somewhat unquestioned ruler, and actually there's a lot of positives to that, aren't there? But
Clive has got one hard and fast rule as a broadcaster, and that is that he will not have people speaking ill of fascism in his studio.
Yeah,
he's got on record.
When we're sued, I'm definitely on Clive giving evidence.
Yeah, he is. He'd got a black shirt on that day.
Black shorts.
Yeah. The funny thing about that day is I had deliberately liquored myself up good and proper to go in the studio before. I think I'd had 6 points before I went in the hope that it might make me a bit more loose-tongued, to say something a bit more... I thought it would be funny to get cut off. But in the end, I didn't really get the opportunity to. I think I talked about Carl Baker's merits as captain more than anything else. And then when he got so cross about me calling a noted, self-admitted fascist... a fascist, I was a bit like, wow, I didn't even need the beers. Like, apparently this was a lot easier than it was. Yeah. But that's
what you didn't realise is that Clive was much drunker than you were.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to get through the day somehow, haven't you? Oh dear. That's our future. I mean, the whole thing about this was ultimately for me to get a job at CWR 7 years ago when we were first conceiving this. And that's gone up in smoke. Criticising Jeff Foster, admitting that I was
great
drunk on
advertisement, I think. We are available.
We are very much available, yeah. I am more than happy to work for CWR as long as I don't have to actually live in the city. If I can broadcast remotely and pretend that I'm like, oh, Broadgate was mad today, weren't it? Bloody Earlsdon. What's all that about?
You can commentate on the cricket from afar.
Yeah.
Can I just want to disassociate myself from these negative remarks about Coventry from a metropolitan snob.
The elite. The metropolitan elite. For me, Cambridge Oxford.
Yeah, this
educated.
Man sitting
completely against the elite.
Sitting in his Northern Quarter loft conversion in an ironic football shirt, looking down his nose at ordinary people.
Listen, the Northern Quarter is so passé. I actually live in multicultural Prestwich now, which is where all of the hipsters move to once they've had a kid. Yeah. Can we actually, very quickly before we go, can we bring up something that was another hot potato from last week? Was the idea that I questioned Laurie's choice of getting a flight to the Sunderland game?
He was justifying it to me on Saturday. He was he broke it down. He got out a little train, a little car, and a little plane, and he explained with a whiteboard, and he added it all up, and it all made perfect sense to me that he was going to fly.
But this is the thing: is that I think, look, the hilarity of it was the notion that we live in a society where that's a realistic option. I knew that was price-wise and time-wise would have made sense, but it was more, I'm not letting him get away with saying that what he's going to do is he's going to go from Margate to Sunderland by plane. The amount of people, bear in mind that I've said much more awful, stupid, pointless things on here. I'm not sure I've ever had more messages about, oh, actually, I live down that way and I'm going to get a flight. I was like, yeah, I'm sure you are. Go and live your own life.
What I thought was unfair was that you said, so you're going to be flying from Margate, and he ridiculed you for that. But actually, there was a Kent International Airport until 3 years ago when it was closed down. So the joke's on him.
Ed, where were you last week? Come on, we should have done with this.
It closed down 3 years ago, having not operated a flight from it with the last 70 years.
Because there had been no commercial air traffic.
Did anyone use Cov Airport? I'd used Cov Airport a couple of times.
Is that no longer going? Is that shut down?
No, it shut down quite a while ago. Not an airport, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, but there you go. I thought that somebody else might say, oh yes, and then we could talk about Cov Airport, but that didn't happen. Anyway, it's good to end the show on a high.
I came on the football show, not the airport show.
I don't know why we bother. I don't know why we bother talking about football when there's other stuff that we can talk about like this.
Yeah, I mean, no.
This is why people tune in.
I mean, people don't tune in, I guess, is the Anyway, let's before we all disappear very deep up our own bottoms, let's put a bullet in this one's head. Anything that anyone wants to plug before we leave? No. Dominic, who was on earlier doing the preview, he did his massive season preview. You can find that at www.sidewayssammy.com, I think. And Laurie, who was on last week, is thelonelyseason.club, and we've just mentioned his name again there. Go and have a look at those things. Neil, are you going to do a writing thing soon?
Probably not. No. It's a shame. It's a shame.
Tom Furnival Adams, who he mentioned, did the season preview in The Fabulous When Saturday Comes and did a lovely job of it. You can go and check that out. Our good friend FMC Online is still knocking out t-shirts for anybody that hasn't already got one. Although it does seem like everybody. How prevalent were they on Saturday?
Yeah.
That is an empire. Go on. Not this. Every season, Paul, you manage to fight to not get a shirt, don't you?
Fucking hell. Someone made a reasonable argument about the fact that obviously they've sold more than they normally do, and I understand that as an economic point of view, yada, yada, yada. However, it's the first game of the season. You stood in the club shop, and there's about, I went in there a couple of times because I just did. And I saw about 10 kids come in, like, they don't have their own shirt. Oh, okay. And just every other club in England surely had home shirts on sale.
I bet they don't.
The first game of the season. I bet they do.
I bet they don't.
Why would you not have home shirts on sale on the first game of the season?
But then what makes us so special?
The fact we're fucking useless, and this isn't.
But it's just sport. It's not the club that owns it.
Yeah, I know it's not.
Just
sport,
and loads of them. Northampton and Portsmouth have got the same kit, same deal.
Yeah, I know they have. But I bet if you went online and went to buy their home shirt, if you had the effort and went on to every single 92 club and went click home shirt, I bet you could have it here by Saturday. The only one you can't do it with is Coventry don't have home shirts on sale.
Do they have the goalie shirt for sale?
No, they're the away shirt only.
Because I do find the idea of you, for some reason, I just find the idea of you wearing a goalie shirt, like a 6'5" angry adult in a goalkeeper shirt, really funny.
Yeah,
it's not hard. Just not. I mean, Just have home shirts available. Just that's it. Just fucking. It's just one of the. I don't know. It's not. It might not be the club's fault, and that's fair enough. But it's just sort of. It's the sort of shit that just seems to happen to Cop, and it's just highly frustrating. Because like last season, we ran out of kits, so we had a special one for Wembley, which we wore once. Fair enough. Cash in. Yeah, cash in while you can. That's fine. But this is twice within 3 months we've had a kit issue. Like, it's like Nike should come out and someone should. I know, but it's under the Nike brand. It's just like it's just shit. And that's like I know this is me probably making a mountain, but it's just like I just want to buy the fucking home shirt in the first game of the season. We're only going to wear it this season. Next season we'll have a different one. And if we get to Wembley this rate, we're going to have to wear a different one for Wembley. Which obviously is not a negative thing because going to Wembley is awesome, but just fucking have home shirts on sale. And final thing on this, if you're going to have a home shirt, sky blue, don't make the bloody numbers and letters dark blue.
Why?
Well, again, that's just because you can't fucking read them.
You definitely can.
You can't. Not the back end of block 15. It's like, who's that guy? I don't know.
Anyway, next week on My Soapbox, Portsmouth and Northampton shirts are available, so you could just get one of them.
just stay in it sky blue.
I liked the guy. I saw a guy a couple of years ago when we first got the Nike shirt who'd got the shirt but with no sponsor on it. And I asked him, I said to him, how have you managed to do that? And he just said, I just bought the template kit and stuck a badge on it. And it looked perfect as well. I said, how much that cost? He was like, it was like 16 quid all in. I was just like, that is a fucking genius idea for anybody who could be asked. Paul, maybe that's your answer. Maybe you just need to go full DIY.
Apparently our sky blue is a bespoke sky blue, so it's not on the templates.
Well, yeah, I actually have looked for it, but I assumed that it just wasn't there because I'm not very good at searching for things. Okay.
Paul, I'm impressed that you managed to mask your plea for a free shirt with moral indignation.
If I'm going to get a free shirt, I want a small boys with the name Mary and the number 6 on the back, if anyone's listening to this.
Well, you don't want to get into your peccadillos now.
Number 6. Is she a centre back?
She just wants some age on the back.
Right. Gosh, she's not 6, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Obviously, I was like, get the number 10 jersey. Everyone wants to be the number 10. But no, she wants her age.
She'll grow into a number 10.
Yeah. Then I wouldn't have to buy a new home shirt for 4 years. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. The passing of time, mate. Yes, we did. A couple of people sent us the picture of it. Yeah.
And I'll have a little look if someone's got it. Send it over to me.
I'll send you the picture. It sounds very much like we've forgotten that we're still recording at this point, isn't it?
I was going to say you've got quite a big editing job to do now.
You would think, but not going to happen. So enjoy this extra, what we're calling content. This is this is a little treat for. This is behind the scenes for you of the Neil Lamptey show. Right, let's get this gone. Thank you, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, mate.
We'll be back with you next week. Bye.